Welcome everyone to Wrasslin Raw!
Listening to the Wrasslin Raw podcast, the podcast that takes you back to when the World Wrestling Federation developed a little bit of an attitude. Thank you for joining us. You're here with Ryan Arico.
If I dig it, he will come. If I dig it, he will come.
Joe Giammatteo.
Certainly doesn't look like you've missed too many meals.
I'm the one and only Jason Bartlett, and we're going to examine WWE history, one episode of Raw at a time. But first, last week we talked about the end of Chris Candido's run, or in this case, Skip, or Skip Donna, as he was known in the WWF. And it reminded me that my good friend and podcast co-host, Mr. Joe Giammatteo, got me Chris Candido, No Gimmicks Needed, the biography, I guess, of Chris Candido, written by John Cosper and Johnny Candido, with a lot of material included from a lot of different interviews with friends of Chris Candido, people that worked with him throughout his career. And once I realized that Chris's run with the WWF was done last week, I decided to put aside the fantasy series that I'm reading currently, and I slammed this biography over the weekend.
Nice.
And let me tell you, it is a great read. The one thing that I can absolutely say about this book is that it was written from the heart. It was written by his brother, Johnny, his younger brother. Not too sentimental, but very honest, and written from a true place of love. You can tell through the memories reflected in this book that Chris Candido seemed like a genuinely good person who had a genuine and very real love for the business, and eat, slept, breathed wrestling all the time. So I wholeheartedly recommend it to anybody out there that wants to learn a little more about Chris Candido. No gimmicks needed.
Just to add on to that, I didn't even realize until after last week's Jobber of the Week featuring Chris Candido. When I went back and looked at it after and was listening to the episode, I was thinking his birth date and debut seem really close. So I looked up and was like, yeah, sure enough, he started at 14 wrestling. So really highlights his love for the business to start that young.
Yeah, he had his step-grandfather was an old WWF wrestler. Not a huge name. I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me right now to look it up, but he was broken in at a pretty young age and got to hang out with a lot of really old school influential guys in the Northeast there in his youth. So he got a pretty good education from the ground up in the old traditional style. Like I said, a genuine love for the business. And the one thing that I thought was especially interesting about it is the way that the book talks about Sonny and also Chris's substance abuse problems. It's a very honest book whenever it comes to some of the darker subjects of his life without dwelling on them. But Chris's brother writes this book and discusses Sonny in much the same way that he discusses Chris's substance abuse problems. It's treated the same way, and it kind of gives an insight into the way that Chris's family, at least, saw Chris's relationship with Sonny. Just one more addiction that he couldn't, or maybe didn't have the power to let go of. So, yeah, like I said, just a very, very interesting book. Thank you again, Joe. All new levels of appreciation for the man.
Yeah, I'm glad you liked it. I saw the reviews and everything were really good on it. And I saw a couple quick clips with Johnny Candido on YouTube. And you're right. Yeah, when he talks about Chris, you can tell, he speaks from the heart. And Chris was obsessed with wrestling.
All right. Well, gentlemen, in this episode of Wrasslin Raw, we're going to be talking about the Raw that aired on September 30th, 1996. This Raw was recorded at the Hershey Park Arena in Hershey, Pennsylvania, and features Kevin Kelly, Jim Ross, Jerry the King Lawler, and one or two others on commentary throughout the night. Are you guys ready?
I'm ready.
Ready.
All right, then. Let's get into it. I have no loyalty to the World Wrestling Federation. JR, at the start of this episode.
Redass JR.
What a start to an episode.
Bigger heel push than Vader ever had. And we get a recap of the main points of JR's in-ring promo from last week. Diesel's in the building. Savio Vega will be taking on Razor Ramon. And this is Monday Night Raw. And we go straight into our first match of the night. Stone Cold Steve Austin defeats Jake the Snake Roberts by pinfall in 10 minutes even. Kevin Kelly is looking and sounding good as he brings us into this match. JR is there looking miserable, and Jerry Lawler is here to make Jake Roberts' alcoholism jokes. Right off the bat, pretty surprised. Jake was looking a little better than before. He didn't have the Fat Man vest on to hide his gut.
Yeah, he's shirtless.
Yeah. And this didn't start off too badly. The tie-ups were tight. The action was fast. Austin looked like he was having fun with it. And Jake was actually moving like a 41-year-old wrestler instead of an 87-year-old wrestler. Commentary kept dropping nuggets about how real Razor Ramon is. Can't wait to see how that turns out later. I wish I would have never said that. I did not care for the chicken shit heel action from Stone Cold here, leaving the ring and staying out of the ring for way too much time. I mean, I know why we were doing that, to keep Jake from getting more blown up than he would, but still, just not a good look for Austin, who it looks best when he is aggressive, I feel. The way that Austin dodged the DDT looked great. And what didn't look great was Jake taking time out of the match to argue with Jerry Lawler at ringside. The commentary from Lawler throughout this was insufferable, and a lot of time was spent selling and waiting and posing, which is fine, because when they come back to action, actual action, and not just two men yelling at each other, it was relatively high speed again. The quote-unquote kick-out from Jake Roberts towards the end of this was pretty fucking weak. He more or less raised his leg in an attempt to get a rope break, but didn't realize that both the referee was in the way and he wasn't close enough to the ropes to make it happen. But thankfully, they called that as a kick out. And that's where things started to go downhill for me. Jake got blown up. Lawler came to ringside with the bottle of whiskey that he seems to always have on him. I mean, if anybody's a fucking alcoholic here, it's Jerry Lawler. He's always got a bottle of Jim Beam on him. And he took a big old gulp and spit it in Jake Roberts' face. I did like Austin getting the rope break out of the DDT pin, and I did like the stunner out of nowhere. I did not like Jerry Lawler joining Stone Cold and beating Jake Roberts in the ring after the bell. But I did like Savio Vega hitting the ring with the Caribbean strap to rescue Jake. Hopefully that means another Austin Vega match and not a tag team with Jake Roberts match. Joe, this was probably the best Jake Roberts match we've seen in this run. What did you think of it?
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with everything you said pretty much on your recap there and your thoughts. It's Austin's buying a lot of time for Jake Roberts. I didn't care for that. You're right. The match is too long. Austin, to me, if you're going to have him feud with Bret Hart, then he should be just steamrolling through guys right now, especially Jake Roberts. And if the boozing jokes and bottle of Jim Beam stuff was ever funny, maybe the first one or two times, but not the 50th time. Like, it's the same shit over and over. And last time it was Mark Henry came out to make the save. Now it's Savio. Yeah. If this sets up something between Savio and Stone Cold, that's great. But if it's setting something up with Savio and Jerry Lawler, then we're in trouble.
Yeah, we're all three in agreement. That was something I had down was Jake's best match yet since he come back. I was kind of shocked by that. From the beginning, though, as they came down, and I know we should have expected it. It's taped all in the same place, so it's going to be here for the next month, but the tombstone is still there in the middle of the ramp. And we're going to see it all the way to In Your House. And I really do hope they leave it at In Your House as well. As far as when this stuff started in the ring, though, outside of a lot of shoulder taps in the corners by both guys, a minute into it, I thought Jake would be blown up, but they were still actually going at it. Unfortunately, everything had to come to an end when it was derailed by the King and all of the drunk antics with Jake the Snake. And yeah, it's just tiresome. How often can we see this week in and week out? And with everyone that comes out, anyone that's against Jake the Snake, we're going to have the King coming ringside with a bottle. And half the match is going to be focused on that. But the ending was kind of neat. I liked Stone Cold's, the first reversal of the DDT, and then they kind of killed Jake's finisher here. He a clean break of the DDT and then comes back with a finisher of his own. He lands the stunner and wins. So I do agree with you, Joe, that it was probably a little too long of a match. But if they're going to have him kick out of a former great like Jake the Snake, if Stone Cold could get out of his finisher, I think that's putting him over a little bit.
Yeah.
The end with Vega, I don't know if we're going to get a full-blown feud out of them, but if we can get another match, that would be great. I would like that.
Yeah, and you said something that I thought was a little funny there, Ryan. Whoever Jake winds up wrestling, they're going to wind up in one way or another jobbing out to Jerry Lawler's alcoholism jokes.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
When I can just imagine any of these guys walking into the arena and looking at the match card and saying, "Oh, fuck, I've got to go out and..."
Job to the jokes and the alcohol interference.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for Stone Cold here, I would say that it's like how they bury people. But I mean, we know Stone Cold isn't getting buried here, and thank goodness he wins and comes out of it all right. But Jesus, I wouldn't want to walk in and find out I'm going to be taking part in that bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like finding out on the list you have to go to summer school. You see the kid put it, "Oh, man."
Back out to the graveyard now with Mankind and Paul Bearer. Mankind is digging and Paul Bearer is pleading with Mankind, because what Mankind doesn't understand is that, much like a groundhog, the Undertaker will dig his own grave. Back at ringside, Lawler returns to commentary. We get reminded that Jim Cornette and Jose Lothario will be in the ring once again. Jesus Christ. And then we get a view of Razor Ramon and Diesel in the back. They literally look like cartoon parodies of cartoon characters. This is almost an Uncanny Valley gimmick scenario that just blows my mind. As in, why the fuck did anyone ever think that this was a good idea? Thankfully, we move away from that, though, temporarily at least, to go to Hunter Hearst Helmsley, marching to the ring with a vengeance. And just as he gets there, we cut to commercial. Come back just in time to catch Hunter calling out Mr. Perfect. The words coming out of Hunter's mouth were correct, but the tone and delivery were off. The way that this kind of hit me while I was watching it is that the words being said here would have sounded better coming out of the game's mouth rather than Hunter Hearst Helmsley's mouth. What he was saying was right, but the gimmick saying it was not right. And it's signaled then that this is the end of the segment, so I have to ask, Joe, what did you think about that brief Mankind video, our first full view of Razor Ramon and Diesel, and Hunter Hearst Helmsley finally calling out Mr. Perfect after weeks of no movement in that story?
The Mankind and Paul Bearer stuff, it appears very low budget, but it's hilarious and entertaining. So
yeah,
you can't not enjoy that. And something that I do not enjoy at all is the Razor and Diesel fake Razor, fake Diesel, whatever the fuck we're going to call them. Pretty bad.
What do you mean fake? That's Razor. Yeah. That's Diesel.
And Hunter Hearst Helmsley, I think I've made it clear that I love his wrestling. But I have to say the Hunter Hearst Helmsley gimmick is being spread a little thin for me right now. I'm not really into the gimmick too much anymore. Like you said, Paul Levesque, the person behind the character, is definitely more comfortable as the game than he is as Hunter Hearst Helmsley. Not that the promo was terrible, but it's just, it seemed very scripted and just not real.
I enjoyed the vignette with Paul Bearer and Mankind. It was short. It's kind of the exact theme that we've had from last week. So I assume we're going to get another from Undertaker kind of answering them back. But yeah, this is a good way to continue their story. Then we get the first shot of Glenn Jacobs as the fake Diesel, and I have some names maybe to try out for him here. We'll see how you guys like them. How about Phaser and Feasel?
Jeez.
Phaser and Feasel.
That's the best I could do with their terrible fake faces and names. And the same thing to point out with Hunter, when he grabbed the mic, this was Triple H. The tone, the sound, everything about it was Triple H, not Hunter. I don't necessarily hate that. The promo was okay. The one thing I am a little bit happy is after no movement for months on this storyline, at least we're going somewhere with it now. So I was happy to see that.
Yeah, I agree. I wish I didn't know that Mr. Perfect wouldn't be coming back. This is one of those times where I wish I could suspend my disbelief and just hope to see Mr. Perfect in the ring one more time.
It kind of ruins it.
Yeah. All right, well, as Hunter exited the ring, the bell told us it was time for our next match. The Godwinns, Henry and Phineas, with Hillbilly Jim, defeat the Grimm twins, Jared and Jason Grimm, by pinfall in 4 minutes and 24 seconds. I'm pretty sure the Grimm twins were the Blue Brothers. I'm pretty sure I saw the covered up SS tattoos on their arms, and I did confirm that later on. You guys remember how the Blue Brothers had like that almost tribal looking tattoo, but you could clearly see the SS in the middle of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, did they cut their hair maybe, or?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because they had long hair.
I was trying to remember. It was so forgettable.
Yeah. The Godwinns come down with a really cute goat that Phineas was showing off to everyone, and this is where we saw that Hunter Hearst Helmsley had joined commentary for this match. The American commentary table was not impressed with the goat, but the Spanish announce table did give it some scritches, though, so that was good to see. Whenever I was making my notes here, I had to include that I learned in my book, Chris Candido, No Gimmicks Needed, that it was Phineas that took the slop bucket back in the locker room, set it down in the middle of the locker room, and said, "Hey guys, Sonny's getting slopped tonight.
Oh boy.
Nothing, don't let anything happen to this bucket." And then turned around and walked out. Came back about a half hour later, and it was full.
To the brim.
Yep.
Overflowing.
Meniscus special.
Yeah.
Good God. That's disgusting. The action in the ring wasn't all that fantastic to start, and it didn't help that we spent some time in split screen focusing on Hunter at commentary. Henry Godwinn looked great. He always does. That big motherfucker he can move in the ring, and it's kind of startling sometimes to see how fucking fast he can go. But then we got a split screen with Mr. Perfect responding to Helmsley. Mr. Perfect accepted the challenge, but is going to give Helmsley a couple weeks to get in shape. Back in the ring, the action has been lackluster with the Grimm twins, whichever one of them it was. I think there were miscommunications and hesitations there. Phineas does eventually manage to get the slop drop, and that's it for the Grimm twins. Thank goodness we got a slow-mo replay of the reversal into the slop drop. It gave a nice clear view of that aforementioned hesitancy. You could see how slow they were setting it up. Ryan, this was a tag match, so obviously nothing that we can take seriously, but I do need to ask you, what did you think about Jacob and Eli Blue, or Jared and Jason Grimm, or Ron and Don Harris on split screen here?
Well, they were as good as the last time we saw them, which is not very. I almost made them jobbers of the week, but what kept it back was they weren't really treated as a jobber team, maybe because they matched up size-wise with the Godwinns pretty well. They didn't match up skill-wise, though, with the Godwinns, and that was pretty clear. But I didn't go with jobber of the week for them because really at 4 minutes, almost 5 minutes as a match, that's about as long as any tag teams give it.
Yeah.
I felt like maybe if they show back up and get stomped by someone really quick, I'll give them Jobber, but maybe not. Maybe they don't even deserve Jobber of the Week. Maybe they're that worthless. But we go to Mr. Perfect, of course, because as you pointed out, this was a tag team, so we're not going to focus on it. This match was about Mr. Perfect accepting the match. Again, Bartlett, you said, I wish I didn't know that Mr. Perfect isn't going to wrestle because as far as it looks here, he's going to. So I wish I didn't know that, but that's unfortunate. And we come back to the match. It just finishes. And then the Godwinns do their hoedown and the crowd loves that. So at least the crowd was kind of given what they wanted with the goat and the celebration with the Godwinns. Yeah. But as far as the match goes, they didn't get anything too special here.
I feel like we haven't seen the Godwinns in a long time.
It's been a little bit.
Yeah.
Been a couple weeks.
So we're getting a new tag team here, the Grimm Twins. We've seen them before as another act. So, I was kind of looking forward to this, seeing a fresh new tag team come in, and haven't seen the Godwinns in a while, and they brought out the goats and everything, and I'm excited. And then it's all about Mr. Perfect and all this other bullshit. So took my attention away from the match. So I don't really have much to say about the match, to be honest. The Grimm Twins were not that impressive. And Henry Godwinn, like you mentioned, Bartlett, he's always just so smooth in the ring for a big guy. It's no surprise to me that Helmsley became such good friends and remains good friends with William Regal, because, the way that he's talking and acting just is basically William Regal.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. He was in a tag team with him before he left WCW to come here. So, but it's just not very good to me. Like, the voice just doesn't seem as genuine as William Regal, probably because William Regal is actually British.
That helps.
Yeah, so I don't know. He wasn't very good on commentary, Helmsley. I didn't like it very much, but I didn't like the fact that it was another 4-man booth again. Like, we keep getting that every week, and it's just a clusterfuck. The stuff with Mr. Perfect, you guys mentioned, it's a shame we know that we're not going to see him, but what I took from that is this is just more false advertising from WWF to their fans. Yeah. You're telling them Diesel and Razor are coming back. You're telling them Mr. Perfect is going to have a match, and they know damn well he's not going to have a match, but they're still selling it as if he is. So It kind of pisses me off a little bit.
Yeah, that's a great point. Great point, especially taken in context with Razor and Diesel. Well, let's move it along, because Doc Hendricks has filed a report on Double J Jeff Jarrett and the hoax that was Double J's musical career. A new twist is put on the story here, though, as it claims Jeff Jarrett left his friend high and dry when he took off after that match with Shawn Michaels. But wait, Doc has found secret footage of the rehearsal tapes that feature that same friend that was left high and dry, who also just so happens to be the real singer, the real Double J, Jesse James the roadie. Jesse James is there singing and not doing too bad of a job of it. Just last week we were talking about how much we remembered this, and the reveal of the real Double J took me back to a much more innocent and naive time in my life when I thought that it was just a really lucky coincidence that the roadie's initials were also Double J. What a great way for this story to turn out. Ryan, what did you think of this?
I really enjoyed it. Like you, this is something I definitely remember, and I've been excited to see Jesse James in the ring more after that one time we've seen him so far. This video was kind of interesting, with Doc Hendricks telling us he's exposing Double J and that his whole music career was a farce. It reminded me, from anyone that grew up in the 90s, these shows like Hard Copy, and they would run commercials for upcoming episodes about exposing some celebrity or whatever. I felt like it was done very much in that style, kind of tabloid bullshit, but in video format, Yeah. But I thought it was done well, and the moment I saw Jesse James and the real Double J, I popped for it. I can't wait. I'm excited to see this happen and see him in the ring.
Yeah, it's a real callback to the 90s tabloid stuff for sure. So, I mean, it's definitely a sign of the times. If you watch this, it doesn't really hold up that well. But if you think about it in 1996, it's like, okay, this makes sense, including the song, because the song is so hard to listen to now. It's just so fucking bad. This week, they showed us that it's the roadie. So now we know that we are going to get the roadie, hopefully doing more of this and also wrestling.
Yeah, agreed. It's nice to have a departure from what you were saying before, the WWF constantly selling us a false bill of goods. Now we know that they're still going to keep putting Jeff Jarrett's face up on our screens, but the real topic here is Jesse James. I don't think we're going to get away from Jeff Jarrett's face for a while here. Not that that's a bad thing necessarily. It's just, I can see it maybe getting a little crooked in the storytelling if they're going to keep referencing somebody that isn't there and can't participate, at least not anytime soon. The sound of screeching tires on our screens can mean only one thing. It is time for some bullshit. Savio Vega defeats Phaser, I guess. Savio Vega defeats Phaser by disqualification in 9 minutes and 30 seconds. It amazes the hell out of me the amount of times that commentary said Scott Hall and Kevin Nash during this segment.
Just keep on pushing, WCW.
They're notorious for ignoring the fact that the competition exists, and yet they can't stop name dropping them here in this match.
And they are also the ones suing WCW because Scott Hall is acting like Razor Ramon.
Yeah. Good God. This whole thing. Gorilla Monsoon has joined commentary here and asks what's his real name when Jim Ross defends Razor Ramon's presence. What a pile of horse shit. You have no idea how bad that was pissing me off. Not just because this is a stupid story, because it is. This whole angle is just fucking ridiculous. But the balls of somebody named Gorilla Monsoon sitting there saying, what's his real name? When that same question could be asked of any fucking person going through that ring. I mean, I know they're trying to beef up the story and just make it more salacious and maybe a little bit of, reality based, but god damn, what a pile of horse shit. Sorry. Savio Vega starts things off hot, but things quickly devolve because commentary just doesn't fucking let up on this angle. Jim Ross and Gorilla Monsoon arguing.
I didn't say Scott Hall. I didn't say Kevin Nash. You said.
This was like watching pundits on fucking CNN or Fox News or something argue about some stupid goddamn topic. This was horrible. Complete with split screens. So, I mean, we didn't even get to, not that there was anything fantastic going on in the ring, but like it's the worst of all worlds here. This was an absolute travesty of broadcasting, as there was not a single enjoyable fucking thing about it. To put things into perspective, the first time I agreed with someone was when Jerry fucking Lawler had to be the voice of reason and suggest that this wasn't the place or time to be arguing, and that maybe they should take it backstage and behind closed doors. Yes, please, fucking do that. I would appreciate that as a fan and somebody trying to watch this shit. God damn it. Kevin Kelly tried to get things on track, but it didn't work out at all. I did really like Monsoon's comment, though, when JR invited Monsoon to his office on the executive level of Titan Tower. Monsoon replied with, "The guy's got a loaf of bread under each arm and he's still crying." Something about that just hit me the right way.
It was just an old school comment that, it made me chuckle.
Really, what action we did see, some of it wasn't bad. Savio's flying crossbody was great. Phaser's working punches really didn't look all that bad. He was doing all right with some of those. Split screen goes to Doc Hendricks trying to get a word with fake Fiesel, but he's not there in the room as we cut to commercial. And Jim Ross, Jim Ross brings up the fact that Doink didn't get signed on Jim's watch, prompting Monsoon to drop the phrase sports entertainment in response. And then Fake Diesel comes down to the ring, interfering and drawing the DQ in favor of Savio. First a Razor's Edge for Savio, and then a jackknife powerbomb for Savio, and thank fucking Christ this was over. Not only did I not give a shit about this match, but the petty fucking bitching and bickering on commentary did nothing for me. I fucking hated it. And no fucking wonder people were changing the channels back in 1996 if this is the shit that they were tuning into. I think I've got it all out of my system. Joe, what did you think of this?
I think it's just humiliating for so many people involved.
Yes.
It's humiliating for Jim Ross, obviously. It's humiliating for Gorilla Monsoon to have to join commentary just to bicker with Jim Ross during an entire match. It's humiliating for Rick Bogner, I think was his name, Glenn Jacobs, Savio Vega, Jerry Lawler, Kevin Kelly. Kevin Kelly and Jerry Lawler, they sound annoyed for real during this whole thing.
Yes.
It's like, yes.
It's unbelievable. And poor Rick Bogner. I mean, the guy is, you can tell he's kind of green. He's being sent out there to be Razor Ramon. It's like, man, I just feel so bad for the guy because you can tell it's just not like he's doing all the mannerisms, but it's like, it's such a fucking low rent version of it. I mean, it's really bad. And for Glenn Jacobs, like, man, I can't believe this guy seized an opportunity to become a Hall of Famer because talk about just, he's a fucking dentist at first. Now he's fake Diesel. He's going to get an opportunity to be Undertaker's brother and just go straight to the Hall of Fame with it. So props to him for that because this is all just really bad.
Yeah, complete agreement with both of you. This is pretty terrible. Right out of the gate, we just have JR and Monsoon arguing, and it just continues through the entire match. This guy playing Razor, he looks okay, but he's nowhere in Razor's league, and it's clear. It's clear from the get-go, and I have it written down just like you, Bartlett. I had to agree with the king. This is no place for it. It isn't. I feel like he actually felt that way. I also feel like JR was leading on a little bit how he feels about it when he brought up the whole doink thing. And he says to Monsoon, as a Hall of Famer, were you proud of that? And I think they were also saying, are we actually proud of this to Vince McMahon? Like, come on, do we have to do this? Because this was just really, I feel bad for a lot of people, like you said, Joe, but none like I feel bad for poor Savio, who had to sit there at the end, not just have a match wasted, but sit there and get a fake Razor's Edge put on him, and then a jackknife. Just poor fucking Savio Vega is really all I could say about this match.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I would also add that I hope that Savio got a good payday out of this, because otherwise there's nothing worth taking bumps for here at all. And what the fuck is up with Monsoon out here getting all pissed off and red-assed about fake Razor? He's the president of the WWF. He has a problem with it. He can just not let him wrestle.
Right.
Like, that's one of the biggest head-scratchers about all of this, is Monsoon is throwing a goddamn fit over this.
Yeah, it's putting a lot of people in a position where they shouldn't be.
Right.
Jim Ross is not a heel. Vince McMahon is not a babyface. Gorilla Monsoon is the fucking president and doing nothing about this. Yeah.
Terrible. What's not terrible, though, is The Undertaker in the cemetery. Taker was laughing like Jabba the Hutt at the start of this. And I didn't put it together until here with Undertaker. The theme of all of this is the original Night of the Living Dead. Like, that's what's jumping out at me here. I'm sure a lot of our listeners are going to be like smacking their foreheads like, duh, Jason. But this segment especially, like, I was just waiting for Undertaker to say, they're coming to get you, Barbara, or something like that, Just, I love the feel of it, and it's doing a fantastic job of getting me excited for this Buried Alive match, even though it's unsanctioned. And that's really all there is here between these segments. Joe, what did you think of this new set of video to get over the Buried Alive pay-per-view?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty well done, similar to the Mankind one earlier, although this wasn't really in the comedy realm like the Mankind and Paul Bearer. It's so funny to hear Mankind and Paul Bearer's voice and then hear The Undertaker later. It's just complete opposites. But yeah, this was very well done. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, same here. I enjoyed it. Like you said, the difference between Paul Bearer and Mankind's comedy, where if I dig it, he will come. He's parodying Field of Dreams there for it. So, but then you have The Undertaker, who's, very serious, talking about how your wish is my command. I will dig your grave and bury you alive. That was great. When he comes and he finds the area that I guess Mankind was clawing in, he bends down and says, I knew you'd come, Paul Bear. And he picks up, I think it's Paul Bear's handkerchief that he uses to wipe away his excessive sweat. I thought that was a great touch. Just loving these vignettes that they've been doing between the two of them.
Undertaker should have brought in the stalker, Barry Windham, to sniff the handkerchief and start tracking them across the cemetery.
I wonder what special cemetery camo there is.
Oh, yeah. All black and moonlight, I'm sure.
With pieces of stone on it.
This version of Undertaker too is ever since Paul Bearer turned on him, it's this more aggressive Undertaker.
Yeah.
I mean, it just goes to show how well Mark Calloway knows the business and knows his character and what to do, because this is way different than the Undertaker that we had just a couple months ago.
Yeah.
And it's really good.
Yeah, the Undertaker from a few months ago would be Paul Bearer talking most of the vignette or promo, and then just Undertaker coming in at the end saying, you will meet your maker, rest in peace, or, something like that.
Yeah, speaking very slowly, but here he's kind of speeding up his cadence a little bit and just really, he's putting his face out there more. Yeah, I really like it.
He's a regular Chatty Cathy compared to what he was before.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, well, first of all, I absolutely agree with you, Joe, on how it's just apparent how well he knows his business here. They were able to milk the whole Undertaker Paul Bearer formula for 6 years, right?
6 years,
right.
Yeah. That's longer than some people's career.
Yeah.
Right.
We've had other people cycle through how many different gimmicks in just a fraction of that time. And the next logical step here is the one that they took. They moved Paul Bearer over to somebody else. The Undertaker's becoming more interactive and picking up some of that slack. And it's perfect. The smart way that this is being done on everybody's part. It's such a great contrast, too. We had the fucking bullshit match that we just came out of where everybody is and should have been humiliated to be part of that, but then immediately contrasting it with something that is being done immaculately for the business.
Yeah, but we already flipped over to Nitro and we're watching.
Yep.
Right after Jim Ross told us to, when they were talking about Kevin Nash and Scott Hall.
Yeah, right.
And everyone went, oh yeah, Scott Hall, they're on that other channel.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point, because I'm pretty sure if this were back in the day, I probably would have changed the channel on that fucking Razor Ramon match. All right. Speaking of things that might make you want to change the channel, let's go into our final match of the night. Jim Cornette and Vader defeat Jose Lothario and Shawn Michaels by pinfall in 9 minutes and 30 seconds. Once again, Cornette is wearing that disgusting full-body spandex suit. They gave us a replay of Mark Marrow doing the Wild thing. I'm not sure why. Doc Hendricks gives us a decent voice-over, pitching Psycho Sid versus Goldust next week. Not honestly sure what that's going to look like. I'm curious to find out, but I'm not holding out a whole lot of hope there. That's not a negative statement about either person. It just doesn't feel like those styles are maybe going to fit all that well. While Shawn's entrance takes about 17 minutes, we get footage of Shawn attending MTV's Rock the Vote. Man, that took me back. I completely forgot that Rock the Vote was a thing. A very cool thing that I appreciate. Good to see, though. Meanwhile, commentary was putting over the champion's grueling schedule. I am not sure what Shawn Michaels' grueling champion schedule has to do with this match. But next week, Diesel is going to go up against the mild man Mark Marrow. Jim Ross says something about it being a conspiracy. And I'm fucking over this whole heel Jim Ross thing. It's really fucking annoying. Vader and Michaels in the ring were almost a footnote here at the start. They were wrestling in the ring and I barely noticed. I didn't care for Shawn pausing to milk the crowd before pulling Vader's crotch back into the ring post. That just showed that Vader was obviously patiently waiting to help Michaels through the move. Cornette and Lothario in the ring was dumb, just like last time, completely pointless, served no purpose. And we cut to commercial for the Crash Bandicoot Slam of the Week. It was Psycho Sid destroying the New Rockers, and it made me want to go out and buy Crash Bandicoot so that Sid would keep murdering the New Rockers. We get back to the ring in time to see Vader waste time in the corner, get reversed, and then got power slammed by Shawn Michaels. And then after a couple of discordant spots, Vader ends up being able to hit a power bomb, then a Vader bomb on Michaels to get the pin and the 3 count. Psycho Sid then comes out of nowhere, apparently to rescue Michaels, but then Goldust comes out, and by then Michaels is up and going after Goldust, and we get some schmoz bullshit as we fade to black. Ryan, I don't think there was a single redeeming thing about this match. What did you think about our final match and the way that Raw ended tonight?
Well, you're wrong. There was one redeeming thing, and that was being reminded about Rock the Vote. That brought back some good memories for me.
Fair enough.
Other than that, though, yeah, as expected, they start off with Vader and Michaels in the ring, and I don't know, they don't really do much. I mean, sure, we're not going to pay attention to it, but sadly to say this, Vader came off as like he wasn't even really trying. He's close to 400 pounds, and he's going up against like a 200-pounder like Michaels, and he's barely able to clear his own head when he throws Shawn over his head and shoulders. It just, I was like, is this a powerhouse or, what's the deal here? I did like JR referring to Jim Cornette as the Michelin Man as we influenced the past yet again. That was enjoyable. But once Jose Lothario and Jim Cornette got in the ring, that was anything but enjoyable. It was terrible again. And then we don't really get much else. We get the Slam of the Week like you, Bartlett. I really enjoyed Sid beating the shit out of Marty and Leaf Cassidy here. That was great to see. But then we come back for this end to the match that I thought was a bit of a head scratcher because it's just a clean victory on your champ here from Vader. I feel like they're trying to build up something with Vader, but we already tried that and it didn't work, and it's a little too late to try and do it again with him, so I don't really understand the ending to this match either. It was just all around pretty much a shit show and a bad match.
Yeah, there's a lot of really terrible things happening here. First off, you booked your world champion to be in this match on Raw, which is just terrible. With Jim Cornette in the ring, looking like the Michelin Man. Your world champion. And then you got Jim Ross all of a sudden slipping back into his normal babyface commentary voice for this match after he just fucking bickered with Gorilla Monsoon for the past 10, 15 minutes. Now he's just back to normal, good old JR.
You said it.
You got Vader getting a clean win here on Shawn Michaels. This is all at like 2 weeks after Mankind and Shawn Michaels had probably the best match we've seen all year. And they follow it up with this, with their champion. It's just unbelievable. But a lot of things are becoming more clear to me as we see some of this stuff, because I remember hearing stuff about Shawn and Vader were supposed to be working a longer program, and Shawn, I guess, put the nix on it, which, look, I would hardly ever defend Shawn Michaels in the 90s, but I agree with that based on, Ryan, what you said and what we've seen with Vader recently. He's just not what he used to be. There's just better people to put in that position. But I guess what ended up happening was they ended up going with Sid to kind of take the place of Vader. So I guess we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, this just doesn't make any sense. Like, where do you go from here? Vader just pinned your champion, so where do you go from here, I guess, is what I'm thinking.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Cornette v. Lothario 3.
Yeah.
That's where, hopefully.
Fingers crossed.
Well, as I said, that was the end of our episode, so let's take it on over now to highlights and lowlights. Joe, why don't you go first?
I mean, I think you guys would agree there's lots of lowlights on this episode, but I have to pick the whole Jim Ross and Gorilla Monsoon arguing.
As your highlight.
No, as my low light. Very low light. During a match that was just an embarrassment. And my highlight, I guess the only thing I can really think of here is the fact that we're going to get the roadie back. That's my highlight.
As far as highlights go, I mean, I'm going to be in agreement with you. The real Double J, Jesse James, just the getting him back. I could have went with the vignettes with Undertaker Mankind, but I did that last week. So I thought that was the only highlight that really stuck out. Low light, as much as I hated the whole fake razor, phaser, whatever segment, that whole thing was terrible. I have to go with this last match just because I think mostly because this is how you're going to treat your champion.
Yeah.
You're going to put him in this match. He's going to then get a clean loss to a guy he just beat a month ago. It didn't make sense to me and stuck out as a low light amongst many tonight.
Yeah, that is an understatement. I think there are a lot of bad things to go with here. For my lowlights, I have to go with not just the phaser match, but also Jim Ross and Gorilla Monsoon on commentary. Like we talked about earlier, that's where I would have changed the channel. And essentially, that's where WWF lost and WCW would have won with me. You don't want your people changing the channel. That's just a basic fact, and they violated it, so fuck them, low light. My highlight, I had to go with Austin versus Roberts, because when else will we get a chance to have Jake Roberts in a highlight? And as we said, his best match of this run so far, and not terrible to watch. It was certainly better than every other match on the card here.
That's fair. That's fair.
So, with that being said, Joseph, do you have any contemporary wrestling news from on and around September 30th, 1996 for us?
Yeah, from the Wrestling Observer, Dave Meltzer has a couple notes here for the upcoming Buried Alive show. He mentions that he thinks that the winner of the Sid versus Vader match will get a title shot against Shawn Michaels at Survivor Series. I don't think that was mentioned on the episode, so we'll have to see and we'll have to wait and see if that happens. He also made a good note here that Shawn Michaels is not going to be having a match at Buried Alive. So we're going to have a pay-per-view that will not feature the WWF World Champion.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Couple notes here on some things that have occurred in the past couple weeks. Many people backstage were not clued in on the Jim Ross heel turn.
Wow.
Oh my God.
Including Kevin Kelly.
Well, wow. Holy shit, man.
Word is, now this was last week, I guess, that we saw his promo as a heel. So that's probably what he's referring to here, Dave Meltzer. But he does say that Jerry Lawler was clued in to make sure that Jerry would not react as a heel.
Okay. Well, that makes sense, I suppose.
Something else that was a little bit of a secret is the ECW angle that we saw at Mind Games.
Yeah.
That was kept a secret from almost everybody within the talent, except for Savio Vega, because he was directly involved. And obviously, I don't know, they don't want Savio Vega getting into a shoot fight on a pay-per-view. So he was clued in on it, but nobody else was, apparently. The WWF is going to, I know you guys are going to be really excited about this. They're going to be hyping that Vince McMahon and Jim Ross will both be on commentary during the Buried Alive show to keep that feud going between those two.
Boy.
Okay.
Some behind the scenes stuff going on within the organizational chart at Titan Sports. Vince had been the CEO of Titan and Linda was the president. However, the position of president has been dropped. So Vince is now the chairman of the board, and Linda McMahon and Neville Meyer are now co-CEOs. You might be asking, who the fuck is Neville Meyer?
I am.
He apparently is a newcomer to the wrestling industry in charge of expansion of the company and has a background in other forms of entertainment, including movies and Broadway. Last piece of news here. We talked about the Hunter Hearst Helmsley promo in the ring tonight. And one thing I noticed was he cuts the promo and then he just all of a sudden just disappears. Did you guys notice that? And he joined commentary. But we didn't see that happen.
Okay, yeah.
Apparently, Helmsley it took him 3 takes live to cut that promo.
Oh, man.
That's...
So, not a very nice treat for the sweet crowd in Hershey, Pennsylvania.
Oh, boy.
I was going to say maybe that was payback for the pig shit that got rubbed into his cut on his back the last time he was in Hershey.
Oh, jeez. And Dave Meltzer also seems to think that this whole angle between Hunter and Mr. Perfect is going to build to Mr. Perfect double-crossing Mark Marrow so that Hunter Hearst Helmsley becomes Intercontinental Champion.
I could get behind that. If that's the payoff, is to humiliate the mild man, okay.
Yeah, but we have to have more mild man on our screens to get there.
He has the belt. Someone has to take it off of him.
But he's getting screwed.
Yeah, but I mean, we can just give the belt. Maybe Marrow can have some kind of lactating kidney issue and we can give the belt to Hunter and just pretend like Marrow never happened. We're good at that.
Well, we're all going to have to wait and see. And that is all this week.
All right. Thank you, Joseph. Illuminating as always. And that's it, folks. We are done with this one. I want to thank you again for joining us. If you like what we're doing here and want to connect with us, you can email us at WRASSLINRAW. Just add @gmail.com to the end of that to submit questions or comments. Check us out on social media and on every podcast subscription platform. While you're there, don't forget to follow and subscribe to get every episode of Wrasslin Raw coming to you every week. Give us a 5-star review and let your friends know how much cooler they would be if they became Rawheads like you and me. Next week on Wrasslin Raw, we're going to take a look at the Raw that aired on October 7th, 1996. With matches featuring Aldo Montoya, the New Rockers, and many more. So, for Joe and Ryan, I'm Jason, and this has been Wrasslin Raw.